Richard Feynman said, "Never confuse education with intelligence. You can have a PhD and still be an idiot." What are some real-life examples of this? Story 1. I have a PhD, and I'm an idiot in most respects. All it takes to get a PhD is to be really good or persistent in doing research in one narrow area of study. The best quote I've heard about this is, they don't give PhDs to the smartest people, they give them to the most stubborn. Story 2. As someone who works security in a hospital, I can say a good 90% of the doctors there are smart, but lack any type of common sense, and sometimes I wonder how they function on a day-to-day basis. Story 3. I know many people in the science field that conduct double-blind randomized controlled experiments in the lab and then go home and check their horoscopes. Story 4. My wife's stepfather was a chemist who currently has diabetes. One night he went to the ER because his blood sugar was dangerously high. He claimed he was eating well. He normally doesn't, so there was no reason why his blood sugar was high. In his car was a 2-liter bottle of ginger ale mixed with grape juice. He said that the two canceled their sugars out, and we didn't know what we were talking about because he was a chemist and he knows how to combine things. Story 5. I worked IT for a hospital. I was speaking to a doctor who forgot his password. While he was spelling his name phonetically over the phone, he said Z as in xylophone. Needless to say, my eyebrows raised. Story 6. Peter Duisberg, molecular biologist who works as a researcher at UC Berkeley and has an otherwise stellar career and well known for his work, became an AIDS denialist, claiming there's no link between HIV and AIDS, led countless people down the rabbit hole, including many who were HIV positive. These individuals ended up infecting others and refusing antiretroviral therapies. This included an AIDS denialist activist named Christine Majory, who infected her infant through breastfeeding thinking, hey, it's not a big deal, it's just HIV, it doesn't cause AIDS. I worked with a girl that graduated from Brown. She would never shut up about it, always Brown this and Brown that. I went to a state school, and it was apparent that she looked down on anyone that didn't attend an Ivy League school. So one day, she was doing that, and I couldn't stop myself. I said something like, oh, you went to Brown, and yet here we are, together in the same place, doing the same job. I had someone on my ship who wouldn't shut up about being older and college educated. She was 3 ranks below me. She had no grasp on the concept of experience. I have a PhD, and I work with a bunch of PhDs. Basically, a lot of them think that because they succeeded in one area, they are an expert in every other area of life, and they always have strong opinions about everything. I think it's also called PhD syndrome. I had a professor for higher mathematics who had real difficulties figuring out how to extract a cup of coffee from the vending machine. Bless him. Not quite PhD, but I was at a party in the UK, full of med students, and stereotypically, everyone was off their face drunk. Well, some guy fell over and broke his collarbone and immediately got rushed by a dozen of them, all fussing and asking him the same questions over and going through the checklist. Half an hour later, and he's still on the couch in pain, and I go to ask if anybody knows why the ambulance is taking so long. Nobody had an answer because nobody had called one. A party full of medical students hadn't called an ambulance or made any transport arrangements for a guy in severe pain with a broken clavicle. Idiots. Dr. Ben Carson, one of the most skilled neurosurgeons alive, thinking that the Egyptian pyramids were used to store grain. Story 7. I had a boss who was an engineer who put a couple $100 in change in a bank's pneumatic drive-through tube where it got stuck and they had to use a jackhammer to get it out. He was upset that the bank was charging him for this because he didn't know this would happen. They had a large sign saying not to put change in the tubes, including on the tubes themselves. Story 8. My first call at my first IT job was in a medical laboratory. There was a doctor who had been in the job for years, and she called saying her computer would not power on. I walked her through some troubleshooting and nothing worked. Is the computer plugged in? Okay. Is the monitor on? Okay. When did the problem start? Type questions were asked, and she answered them all. I go up to her office, and indeed the computer is plugged into a power strip which is plugged into itself. Cleaning crew had deep cleaned her office and never plugged anything back in. Doctor plugged the power strip into itself, thinking that as long as it was plugged in, that's all she needed. Story 9. I was at a keg party at college, and the gravity keg was set up. Someone complained that the beer was not flowing, so I checked that the keg was still almost full. Turns out, someone closed the air intake on top. I opened the intake and poured myself a beer. Problem solved. A few minutes later, someone else complains that the beer is out. I told them the keg was full a few minutes ago, and it was a tap problem that I fixed. They told me they just came from the keg. I go back to the keg and find the intake was closed again. Opened it and poured the young lady who said it was empty a beer. As she is leaving, my sweet mate comes in and goes to the intake can, closes it. Now my sweet mate is a straight A student who gets all A's mostly due to his photographic memory. Back to the keg. So I tell him that he needs to leave the intake open to let the air in to displace the beer coming out of the lower tap. He then proceeds to tell me that since the beer is carbonated, air is not needed to replace the liquid volume lost when the beer is dispensed. So I asked him 2 questions. If it is not needed, why is there the upper tap? And does he really think the amount of gas the carbonation gives off in a glass of beer is equal to the volume of the liquid beer? He thought for a few seconds, and his only response was, "I have a 4.0, what's your GPA?" Then he walked away. Story 10. My ex-boyfriend's mother was a linguistics professor and knew over 10 languages. She was also one of the dumbest people I've ever met. Some examples. She believed that, in case of emergency, stewardesses catapult out of the plane. She was also convinced donating blood causes some blood disease and you can die because of it. But my favorite one was when she said her son's orthopedic problems are not a result of a serious injury yet. His knee hurts because he eats too much ketchup. Story 11. I work with medical doctors all the time for work. Doctors are some of the dumbest smart people I have ever met. Story 12. I went to 3 ERs when I felt something was wrong with my arm. It felt like a bug bite day 1, and by day 4, a bungee cord from my elbow to my wrist. 3 doctors said it was skin irritation or dermatitis. I kept telling them something was wrong. I have no medical degree. I work in property management. Day 5, I walked into another ER and said, "I don't care if I have to pay out of pocket or sit here all night, but something is wrong with my arm." Finally, after many rude looks and comments, I was given an ultrasound of my arm, then rushed to MRI. Then I was told I was being admitted, a 3-inch blood clot on my upper arm, 2 in my chest, and 1 had passed my lung already. Diagnosed with factor 2 gene mutation 22 days later, blood clotting disorder. Story 13. My ex had a real lack of knowledge and common sense when it came to children. She's currently completing her PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. She was confused, though, when I said I couldn't go out after putting my toddler to bed as I had no one to babysit. In her mind, once my daughter was asleep, she no longer needed anyone here to take care of her. I chalked it up to cultural differences and never being around children. Eventually, though, our opinions on raising kids differed too much, and I had to end things for my daughter's sake. We sincerely appreciate you taking the time to watch our YouTube video. If you find our content helpful and enjoyable, please click the subscribe button to stay updated on any new videos we share in the future. Thank you once again, and we hope to see you in our next upcoming videos.